My wife Sarah was pounding on our guest bathroom door, tears streaming down her face after her 13-hour shift in the emergency room. Inside, Patricia Simmons, president of our HOA board, had locked herself in to conduct what she called an urgent conference call about neighborhood compliance standards. Through the door, she shouted with an irritated tone that this was official HOA business and my wife would simply have to wait. That was the moment I decided Patricia's reign of terror in Maplewood Gardens had to end. I'm Daniel Foster, 43 years old, and I work as a network security specialist. My wife Sarah is an ER nurse who works the night shift at Memorial Hospital. We moved to Maplewood Gardens 3 years ago, thinking the well-maintained lawns and community pool would be worth dealing with an HOA. We had no idea we were moving into Patricia Simmons' personal kingdom. Patricia was 57, always dressed in pressed pantsuits, even on weekends, and carried a measuring tape in her purse to check if your grass exceeded the 2.5-inch maximum height specified in Section 12.3 of the HOA guidelines. Patricia had started small with us. First came the warning about our doormat being 3 inches wider than regulation, then a formal citation because our recycling bin was visible from the street for 17 minutes longer than the approved window. She once measured the distance between our garden gnomes with a laser level, declaring them in violation of the HOA's symmetrical arrangement guidelines outlined in Section 37.8, subsection B. She even tried to fine us because the condensation from our air conditioning unit was creating what she called an unauthorized water feature when it dripped onto the decorative rocks below. But things escalated when she discovered I had the fastest internet speed in the neighborhood thanks to my job requiring enterprise-level connectivity. She appeared at our door one evening with a speed test result printed on official HOA letterhead, announcing with a triumphant tone that according to Bylaw 42.9, any residence with community-leading infrastructure was obligated to serve as an auxiliary HOA resource center. I told her that bylaw didn't exist, and she replied with a dismissive tone that it would after the next board meeting, where she controlled all 5 votes. Suddenly, Patricia decided our house was the perfect venue for all HOA board meetings, committee gatherings, and what she called strategic planning sessions. At first, we tried to be good neighbors. When Patricia asked to use our living room for the monthly board meeting, we agreed. When she requested access to our Wi-Fi for uploading HOA documents, we gave her the guest password. But Patricia took every inch we gave and demanded miles more. She started showing up unannounced, claiming she needed to inspect our home for HOA compliance while secretly using our office to print hundreds of violation notices on our printer. She even had the audacity to complain that our coffee wasn't organic fair trade when she helped herself to it during her unauthorized visits. The situation deteriorated when Patricia discovered Sarah's profession. She began timing her visits for when Sarah was sleeping after night shifts, always finding urgent HOA matters that required immediate discussion at maximum volume in our foyer. She would ring the doorbell repeatedly, claiming that HOA business took precedence over what she called leisure sleeping. When I installed a video doorbell to screen visitors, Patricia attempted to fine us for unauthorized surveillance equipment, even though half the neighborhood had the same brand. She went so far as to bring a ladder to peer into our second-story windows, checking if our bedroom curtains matched the approved interior visible textile guidelines she had just invented that morning. Patricia's need for control reached absurd levels when she created something called the HOA Rapid Response Team, which was just her and her cousin Beverly driving around in a golf cart with a light bar they bought on Amazon. They would patrol the neighborhood at all hours, taking photos of allegedly non-compliant gardens, measuring fence heights with a yardstick, and issuing what Patricia called pre-violation warnings for crimes like having too many flowers of the same color or positioning patio furniture at unapproved angles. She once tried to tow my car from my own driveway because it was parked 18 degrees off parallel to the garage door, violating her newly created vehicular alignment standards. The bathroom incident happened on a Thursday evening in November. Patricia had arrived at 4 p.m. for what she called an emergency HOA telecommunications summit, which turned out to be just her and 2 other board members discussing whether to switch internet providers for the clubhouse. Sarah had left for her shift at 6 p.m., and I assumed the meeting would wrap up soon, but at 7:30, Patricia announced she needed to use the bathroom. She went into our guest bathroom and locked the door. 20 minutes passed, then 30, then 40. When Sarah came home at 7 a.m. the next morning, exhausted and desperate after holding it through the end of her shift because the hospital bathroom was being cleaned, she found Patricia still locked in our guest bathroom. My wife knocked politely at first, explaining with a pleading tone that she really needed to use the facilities. Patricia's response was to turn on the bathroom fan to drown her out while continuing her phone conversation about decorative mailbox regulations. I could hear her through the door saying things like, quarterly projections, and, compliance percentages, with the self-important tone of someone who thought they were running a Fortune 500 company instead of a suburban HOA. Sarah was nearly in tears, doing what nurses call the bathroom dance in our hallway. She knocked harder, her voice becoming more desperate as she explained she had just worked 13 hours straight and hadn't had a bathroom break in the last 4. Patricia actually had the nerve to slide a piece of paper under the door that said, "Please respect HOA business hours. No interruptions until 8 a.m. That's when I heard my sweet, patient wife say something I'd never heard her say before. She said with barely controlled anger that if Patricia didn't open that door in 30 seconds, she was calling the police. Patricia's response was to laugh with a condescending tone and remind us that she had every right to conduct HOA business in a designated meeting space, which she claimed our home had become by virtue of hosting previous meetings. She then announced she was recording our harassment for potential legal action. That was my breaking point. I pulled out my phone and accessed our smart home system. You see, Patricia didn't know that as a security specialist, I had our entire house wired with smart speakers, cameras, and recording devices for our protection. All perfectly legal in common areas and disclosed in a tiny sign by our front door that Patricia had never bothered to read. I activated the smart speaker in the bathroom and began playing Baby Shark on repeat at maximum volume. Then, I switched to an endless loop of fingernails on a chalkboard. Patricia lasted exactly 3 minutes before bursting out of the bathroom, her phone call abandoned, her face red with rage. She stormed toward me, shouting with a furious tone about destruction of HOA property and interference with official business. I calmly informed her that she had been trespassing in our private residence for the past 47 minutes and that I had the entire incident recorded, including her denying a medical professional access to bathroom facilities after a hospital shift. But I wasn't done. While Patricia ranted about filing complaints and issuing fines, I was uploading the security footage to our neighborhood's Facebook group with the title, "Our HOA president locked herself in my bathroom for 11 hours while my nurse wife begged to use it after her shift." The video clearly showed timestamps of Patricia entering the bathroom at 7:30 p.m. and refusing to leave despite repeated requests from an exhausted nurse at 7 a.m. I also uploaded the audio of her phone call where she could be heard discussing her personal stock portfolio and online shopping for cruise vacations while claiming to conduct urgent HOA business. Within minutes, the comments section exploded. Jennifer from Oak Street shared how Patricia had measured her daughter's lemonade stand with a ruler and issued a cease and desist for being 4 inches into the public easement. Robert from Pine Avenue described how Patricia tried to fine him $800 because his golden retriever's bark exceeded the approved 70 decibel limit during a thunderstorm. Neighbors shared their own stories of Patricia's abuse of power. There was the time she fined an elderly veteran for having his American flag 2 inches too large, the incident where she tried to force a family to remove their wheelchair ramp because it wasn't in the approved color palette, and the mother she cited for allowing her children to draw with sidewalk chalk outside of designated creative expression hours. Someone even posted a spreadsheet showing Patricia had collected over $40,000 in fines over the past 2 years, with most going to unexplained administrative costs. The next HOA meeting was scheduled for the following Tuesday. Patricia tried to hold it at the clubhouse, but over 50 residents showed up, far exceeding the room's capacity. The crowd spilled out into the parking lot with people broadcasting the meeting on their phones. Patricia attempted to call the meeting to order with her usual authoritative tone, but resident after resident stood up to demand her resignation. When she refused, claiming she had done nothing wrong, I stood up and presented my evidence. Not just the bathroom incident, but 3 months of security footage showing Patricia entering our home without permission, using our facilities for personal business while claiming it was HOA related, and even stealing food from our refrigerator. I had compiled everything into a presentation that I cast to the clubhouse television. There was footage of Patricia taking Sarah's prescription yogurt from our fridge, the kind specifically formulated for night shift workers' digestive health, video of her conducting a pyramid scheme recruitment call in our bathroom while claiming it was HOA vendor negotiations, and screenshots of her using our printer to make flyers for her son's failed food truck business. The crowd gasped when I showed an email where Patricia had tried to list our address as the HOA's official headquarters on state filing documents without our knowledge or consent. But the biggest reaction came when I revealed that Patricia had been using our high-speed internet to run an illegal streaming service, selling pirated movies to residents while threatening them with fines if they didn't subscribe. The evidence kept mounting. Our neighbor Tom, an accountant, had done a forensic analysis of the HOA's books and discovered Patricia had been billing the HOA for mileage every time she came to our house, claiming it was an off-site office. She had charged the association for the toilet paper, soap, and even the water she used in our bathroom. The total came to over $12,000 in fraudulent reimbursements. Another neighbor, Maria, who worked in cybersecurity, had traced the HOA's missing laptop to Patricia's son's college dorm room. The laptop contained all the residents' personal information, including social security numbers Patricia had demanded for her background check program that never actually existed. The crowd grew angrier with each revelation. Patricia tried to adjourn the meeting, but the vice president, a retired judge named Harold Morrison, invoked an emergency vote of no confidence. The vote was unanimous, except for Patricia herself. She was removed from her position effective immediately and banned from holding any HOA office for life. But that wasn't the end of her troubles. Sarah had consulted with a lawyer friend who informed us that Patricia's actions constituted false imprisonment, a misdemeanor that could result in up to 6 months in jail and a fine of $1,000. We filed a police report the next day. Patricia was arrested at her home, still wearing her HOA president blazer with its little gold name tag. The local news picked up the story, running it under the headline, HOA president holds bathroom hostage. The story went viral on social media with a hashtag #BathroomDictator trending locally. Patricia's real estate business, which she ran from home and constantly promoted during HOA meetings, lost dozens of clients within a week. Her business partner publicly dissolved their partnership, stating that Patricia's actions reflected a troubling pattern of boundary violations that he could no longer associate with professionally. The district attorney's office, after reviewing all the evidence, added charges of fraud, embezzlement, and identity theft to the original false imprisonment charge. Patricia hired an expensive lawyer who tried to argue that HOA presidents had broad discretionary powers, but the judge wasn't buying it. During the trial, more victims came forward. A disabled veteran testified that Patricia had tried to fine him for using a wheelchair ramp that was too noisy during descent. A single mother of 3 shared how Patricia had threatened to place a lien on her home because her children's bicycles were the wrong shade of blue. The criminal case was settled with Patricia pleading no contest to misdemeanor false imprisonment, 2 counts of fraud, and 1 count of embezzlement. The judge, who seemed personally offended by the abuse of such petty power, sentenced her to 30 days in jail, suspended to time served, 3 years probation, and a $5,000 fine. When the judge read the sentence, Patricia's face went white as a sheet, and she actually swayed on her feet, grabbing her lawyer's arm as she whispered with a shocked tone that this couldn't be happening to her.